Hey everybody, how's it going? It's going now. Hope to actually have the mic near you if you want to speak into the mic. Anyway, that's just one of those things. Good evening, everyone. We are here for Loomis with Luke. We're going to look at chapter 4, following right after the section that we had last week. Jesus' mission statement in the beginning, in the middle of Luke 4, after the temptation scene. So we're going to look at the reaction of the folks to his mission statement, to his reading of the Isaiah scroll. And so, beginning in verse 21, I'm going to share the screen here. You can see just before this is the quote from Isaiah. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives, recovery of sight to the blind. Let the oppressed go free, proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. The lectionary reading goes on from verse 21 this Sunday. Then he began to say to them, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." All spoke well of him and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his mouth. They said, "Is not this Joseph's son?" He said to them, "Doubtless you will quote to me this proverb, 'Doctor, cure yourself.' And you will say, 'Do here also in your hometown the things that we have heard you did in Capernaum.'" And he said, "Truly I tell you, no prophet is accepted in the prophet's hometown. But the truth is, there were many widows in Israel in the time of Elijah, when the heavens was shut up 3 years and 6 months, and there was a severe famine all over the land. Yet Elijah was sent to none of them except to the widow at Zarephath in Sidon. There were also many lepers in Israel in the time of the prophet Elisha, and none of them was cleansed except Naaman the Syrian. When they heard this, all in the synagogue were filled with rage. They got up, drove him out of the town, and led him to the brow of the hill on which their town was built, so that they might hurl him off the cliff. But he passed through the midst of them and went on his way. All right. Very interesting. And why is this? I see. I'm having some technical difficulties. All right. I see Marcy is here, so she can save me from my technical difficulties. Hey.
Hi.
So how are you doing?
I'm good. I was just thinking that I try to match Denise, who's the pastor of our church. I try to match what she's preaching on with the children's sermon. Yesterday I did do the first part of this text, but I think it was maybe a little dense for them. I tried to really break it down, but I remember coming home thinking, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that one next Sunday, because I'm sure that would not. And
Right.
They're throwing Jesus off a cliff. Why, children? So the other alternatives for the lectionary are the Jeremiah text about, I knew you in the womb and consecrated you. So that might go well. And then, of course, the Corinthians love chapter.
Yeah.
So either of those two might be preferable for the children.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's pretty easy to pick, to not pick that one this
yeah,
week.
maybe we won't do that one Sunday. And so anyway,
I can see you, a group of kids there, and then walking past each one of them with a gift and then giving it to someone far away.
Yeah. It's like, oh, maybe not. We may not do
there
that.
were many children who wanted lollipops this Sunday, but none of them.
After I do the sermon, I give them a lollipop. So that's. But maybe we'll steer clear of this one for Sunday and be a little safe with kids. So
and I've been Oh, I don't know if we want to go full confessional mode here, but I I I felt just so awkward after Sunday. I had a bunch of things in my head to say, and they just
Yeah,
none of them came together, and
right.
it just didn't work. And it's this whole like good news for the poor, and like it doesn't
Yeah, yeah.
doesn't make any sense to anyone,
Well,
and like
I think it was the same challenge, what, 2.5 years ago, right? With
yeah,
preaching that same text. I think you preached
yeah,
that text in Mechanicsville, and it was
yeah,
kind of similar. It's always kind of challenging.
yeah.
How do you
It's
get people to hear that?
Well, I mean, and actually, what I realized, like, kind of halfway through the sermon, which is never a good idea to to realize, is that, like, I mean, is really like it's difficult for me to hear. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, because in honesty, like, I don't like I know how to say what maybe is not good news to the poor. You know what I
yeah,
mean? But like what I actually might do as a part of my, as an expression of my faith and who I am, that
right.
actually is good news to the poor is pretty, like in a very like material and real way,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
really difficult to think about,
yeah, yeah.
especially, and then you start thinking about how a church might do that with all the
Mhm.
other things that a church is thinking about doing. It,
Right,
it gets
right.
really,
It's such
yeah,
a challenge.
right. In
Yeah, this
fact, and
discipleship thing is really tough.
right. Well, and I got to the point where I was thinking that I kind of felt like I should throw myself off a cliff. And
Oh,
not because of the gracious words that I said, because of
yeah, yeah. It is,
just how I
it's
felt
tough.
about the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It
Gotta
was
you want it to be, do as I do, not just do as I say. And it's like, oh, well, what am I doing?
right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
And
Um,
I don't know if I'll have to show you this sometime when we talk again, but uh someone gave me a very nice gift. That's this
oh,
like a little thing that has like a little writing on it or whatever.
yeah,
And it's like
I hear
our
noise.
yeah, that was Leonard. I think Leonard
Oh,
showed
okay.
it. It's like I'll bring him in, and he might be gracious enough to let me finish my story. Yeah. Hey, Leonard.
Sure, finish it.
Yeah. So anyway, it was around Christmas time. So they gave me this nice little gift, and it just it says our pastor, and it says really nice things, but it's basically like the tone of it is like basically our preacher walks the talk or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like it's so like it's like sitting on my way out of my office. So every Sunday when I go to preach, I look at that. I'm like, oh crap.
Oh,
There's an actual expectation here that
there.
I actually
Hey,
do
actually,
do what I say.
right? Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
but that's anyway, very very sweet gift, but challenging nonetheless. But how are you, Leonard?
Hey, I'm here.
Yeah. Did you? I didn't catch any of the stuff over at Union going on. Did you?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
And just the justice issue
Yeah.
and the intersection. We needed, and they talked about connecting the academy and the local church,
Uh-huh.
which is something I've talked about for a long time.
Yeah.
Even though we got so many issues in trying to bring that around, because in a lot of local churches, there's just this skepticism about theological education to begin with. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, hey, Mark.
What's up, party people?
Hey. Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. Mark, how have you been?
Oh, just trying to stay warm.
Right.
It's probably cold up there where you're at, though.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be -6 tomorrow.
Oh,
That should be against the law,
Right.
but
I guess this David was saying that they might not have school tomorrow, and I was thinking, well, surely they won't, close. And he said, but yeah, if the wind chill gets below a certain thing, they call it off. So I don't know what the threshold is here, but starting at -6 can't be a good sign.
Yeah, like heating problems in the buildings.
I guess maybe it's for kids taking the bus and stuff and having to stand there,
Okay.
or something like I don't know for sure.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, anyway, so before you all hopped on, I read the text for this week. I guess the real part of the rejection at the at the end of this here. I was reading this a couple times during the week, and I just I really think it's interesting that because I was reading some different perspectives on it, and someone was just saying maybe Jesus is just being a jerk here. There's there's a real possibility that basically they're saying, look, you're our hometown guy.
You're a homie.
Like if you're here to do this stuff, why are you not doing it here? What's happening?
Let's go.
But I caught the put down first. He was doing this, and then they said, "Isn't this Joseph's son?"
Right.
Isn't this Edlo?
Right.
What is he doing here?
But someone, go ahead.
And then I like how he used the Hebrew text to sort of put him in place. So he's not being a jerk at all. He's just laying it out there.
You could hear them saying, like, he's saying some great stuff. Isn't this Joseph's son? Like he should be like Joseph's our guy. Like what? Like where is he planning on going? Like he should be down with us right now.
Yeah. But see, you haven't experienced the put down with people saying that, and being one that has experienced that more than once, I can empathize with Jesus when I hear this.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, Darren, but I also hear like the article that Marcy said. I think was right on. It's just like this Joseph one. He's just an Okie from Muskogee.
Right.
What's he know about all this scripture stuff? What's he know about all this?
And not only that, the scandal surrounding the birth. So whatever, all of that's thrown in there.
Well, yeah. For Luke, the irony is that he has been building up to the fact that this is God's son.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's been the theme.
Yeah.
Laying out, especially just before with the baptism, you have God, the heavens opening, God declaring it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is there is some irony in it.
Yeah, so it's just like I guess most of the folks in the temple were the educated community, and here comes this no.
Well, this is his hometown. This is not the religious elite.
In the synagogue that day?
Right, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, understanding the culture back there where most people, 98% of the people didn't read.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it was that. If this were a scene in the temple, I would say that. Where the scribes and whatnot are.
Right.
But I think this is a local rural congregation.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's real funny, being in that context for 25 years and how certain people are seen, and then the unspoken language. And I think he shocks them when he brings up the story of Elijah and the widow at Zarephath.
Yeah.
And when he brings up the story, of Naaman, being how does this guy, how does he know all of this?
Yeah, so it goes to the point where he's one of us, so he think he's better than us. we all just country home folk. This guy acting like he's better than us. So I guess maybe that where it came into play too.
Sorry about that. Somebody's spamming.
Well, it's one of those texts to where, like, there's a lot more going on that, we'd love to have the full details. We'd like to have, a little bit more about what happened before and after, and because in some of the scenes, you get a sense that Jesus tries to I think in Mark, the summary kind of is that he tried to do some things in a certain place, but he wasn't able to because of their lack of faith. And so if you have this, if you have a sense that Jesus is in his hometown, has tried to do some things, and then they're saying to him, why can't you do stuff in your hometown like you did in Capernaum? That's more of a put down than a request, than asking. But you don't know the whole background. And you don't know, like Leonard saying, you don't know the looks that they were given while they were saying the things that they were saying. He might have started into the Elijah thing based on a couple of crooked eyes that he got from some people.
But see, that's the thing. He's saying, you all are, so-called children of God, but yet and still, when these miraculous things happen, God chose somebody else to receive it.
And I think, we've been talking about this all along. The trauma that this community has gone through for the past, well, I guess trauma has memory for the past, 400-500 years?
Mm-hmm.
And that sure comes into play too, where the article that Darren, you sent, that points to the great reversal. And I think folks are really struggling with that. I mean, they've been traumatized so long, and they've become so self-isolated to insulate themselves from this trauma. Now you start talking about the possibility of salvation and redemption for folks other than us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's an issue.
Yeah. And see, I was researching another sermon, and I didn't realize when Jesus was around 3-4 years old, there was a Jewish revolt against Rome.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you got people looking for somebody, but they saying, no, not him. Let's not build him up anymore, and get our hopes up, because we saw what happened back then.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, whether we can ever get back to what all the details of the original story, I do think that Luke at least seems to be pushing the angle of people wanting him to do something for them in their place, but Jesus saying that this is available to a bigger group of people,
And that to me is a lot to take when you have insulated yourself for the past, and out of necessity. Now, I would say out of necessity, it's certain you can argue that for the past 400 or 500 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I was reading was saying, that even if you take these texts that way, I mean, you certainly couldn't say that Elijah or Elisha were their mission was directed to Gentiles.
Right.
I mean, these are very
Jewish.
one-off stories.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean about them as prophets, which makes it, maybe even more angering,
Yeah.
that he brings this, these little incidents up, like, why are you talking about this,
But
but yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And one other thing I was going to say about the synagogue, when you all were talking about that, some people even suggest that, this maybe could have been either a house or, people meeting even outside. I mean, the synagogue, the term itself just means,
10 men.
people called together. People
Well,
go,
yeah. Yeah.
10 men. 10
yeah,
men, a minimum.
yeah. And so, this could, because there's been a lot of debate about whether there were actual synagogue buildings in certain places in Jesus' lifetime, whether he would have went to what would later become synagogue buildings like we think of.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
the word synagogue might just mean, well, similar to what the word church or whatever meant for in the early churches, that people got together in somebody's house and they gathered together. So in a rural area like this, it could just be someone's house, and somebody the community has collected, somehow got together some scrolls or some maybe people even wrote maybe somebody even wrote them down themselves, but yeah.
Yeah, so much we don't know because they didn't know who Jesus was, and nobody was taking notes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all memory.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so I
was
Go
going to
ahead.
ask, what were you, I think when you sent the NT Wright article, you said you had some disagreement.
Yes, some
possibly?
issues with it. Yeah.
You had issues. So I was curious about what
Which
those
issues
were.
were. Yeah.
Well, he says that his one of his ways of understanding it right is when they say, where at the beginning, let's see, let me go. All spoke well of him and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his mouth. I think and then they changed their tune later on, but what N.T. Wright seems to say in that article is that what they mean by that is they're amazed by the extent of the grace offered in his words. That the grace goes, is the grace exceeds the community. Somehow. I just don't agree necessarily with his. I don't think that's the right way to interpret that particular thing, because I mean, those gracious words that statement comes before the actual part where he talks about extending it beyond, the people. I mean, I guess it's hinted at a little bit in the fact that there is the continuation of the verse that's quoted is proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of destruction for the enemies or something, like in the Isaiah text, that's the continuation of it. So I mean, if he means by just leaving that little bit off that he has has insinuated something, but I do think there's something to be said, for the greater argument. I think at least in our, looking for an application for our times, I think I like where he ends up. You know what I mean? But
okay.
Because he says, unless they would see that that this way, unless they would see that this way, the time for their God, this was okay. Sorry, I'm trying to read my own writing and not his writing. So sorry.
Unless they could see that this was the time for their God to be gracious, unless they abandoned their futile dreams of a military victory over their national enemies, they would suffer defeat themselves at every level, military, political, and theological.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think for us to take some sort of application out of it, I think that's an you know, to me, that's as interesting a reading as any as any other one, you know, because N.T. Wright spends a lot of time in his like kind of understanding of Jesus is situating the scene of, like we talked about this with Mark, I think a lot, you know, in the Gospel of Mark is, you know, on one side you have the nationalists and the zealots who are ready to take up arms and go, you know, and take on the Romans. And then on the other side, you have the complete assimilationists who just want to, you know, stay comfy and cozy with the Romans.
Just
and Jesus is walking this middle line between both of them, saying, you know, one way is basically continued oppression for all the people, you know, that God cares about, and the other way is basically, you know, assured destruction, because Rome is too powerful for you to take on militarily. And I think that you know, so reading this text that way, you know, makes sense in that context. And of course that, you know, that continued on in the years following. I mean, you know, by the time the temple is destroyed, and you know, and then you have movements that continue to go after that. And so that debate is still very live about how to be, you know, what the best way to be is. And and of course for us, I mean, you know, like the choice between, you know, getting our way through some kind of, you know, military force and power, you know, or choosing a different option that Jesus might approve of, is a very live, you know, thing for us in this world.
For us,
really. You know, speaking of, you know, we look at their reaction, and I've been talking about this internalization of trauma, and their violent reaction towards Jesus. I mean, I think that leads into a discussion of, for me, as we look at the violence of our own culture, and in terms of folks not dealing with the trauma in their own lives. And as we think about, you know, they said last year was one of the most violent years in urban areas that we've seen in years. In Richmond, we had 90 homicides. Philadelphia had 503 homicides. And I'm not trying to say all of it's due to internal trauma, but my point is that there's a lot of pain out there that, you know, we talk about mental health issues all the time, that that folks will even start dealing with the pain that folks are really dealing with. And so one of the reactions to that pain is violence.
Right. Well, I mean, to me, it's also the question of, you know, I mean, in what way do we actually suggest to people that there's an alternative to violence? I mean, you know, I mean, in so many ways, like, you know, if our nation is a great nation, it's a completely violent nation toward other nations. You know, I mean, like,
we reinforce it rather than
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, the way that we deal with any kind of problem as a state, you know, or as a government, like inside our nation, is by just directing violence at it as much as possible. You know, I mean, so it's kind of like, what, you know, where, I mean, I think this is the church's role, right, to offer some kind of way of thinking about living in the world that's not violent.
It's not violent.
That's counter. Yeah, I mean, that's.
Yeah, but yet we saw January 6th, unfortunately, the evangelical movement was silent on this. In fact, some of them seem to encourage the fact that you know, that violence is that the way out of this is violence. You had folks that, you know, that were part of that last year, who really feel that violence is the answer because their needs are not, their viewpoint is not being respected. You know.
Well, I mean, and I mean, you know, I mean, most of the church, you know, I mean, I can't think of the last time that, you know, I heard a serious debate or something within a church about, you know, we should or shouldn't do this because it's violent, or, you know, or like we, you know, like this,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, we don't have I certainly don't, you know, like the church as far as like an anti-war stance on,
Yeah.
you know, or things like that. You know, that doesn't exist. I mean, there's a document somewhere, I bet, in almost everybody's church that that lays out their rationale, but you couldn't get people to people couldn't quote it, I don't think, you know. And I think we saw this in the summer, you know, in 2020, you know, whenever people were faced with the violence of the police against protesters, most of the church had no idea how to deal with that and how to think about that. You know, they were silent.
I think about how Kyle Rittenhouse is being lifted up as a hero in some way.
Right. Yeah.
You know? I mean, folks talk about letting them be an intern.
Right.
I mean, it's just it's amazing that he's lifted up as a viable alternative.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, and Marcy, you can weigh in on this. I mean, the other big, you know, the other thing besides these other avenues of violence, I mean, the increase in domestic violence, you know, during the pandemic, and
yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, and
people not being able to go anywhere, so they're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And
I mean, and that
numbers went through the roof. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, to me, you know, I mean, and you know, I mean, the church has been woeful on that as well throughout the years.
Yeah. And the violence that we commit with each other. I mean, I'll just share with you Saturday. I shared with this Leonard that I was supposed to go to a funeral Saturday for a young person related to my wife, 25-year-old, who committed suicide. 25-year-old committed suicide. And I went to the service, and I stayed 5 minutes because nobody was masked. Nobody was masked. You know, and you know, think about the violence that we commit on each other. Now, people might think, well, not wearing a mask is violent, but that was a super spreader event. And I couldn't take the risk of bringing that thing home to some people in my household who have health issues.
Right.
People just don't think that. They think that, well, it's about me. No, it's not just about you. You don't know what other folks are dealing with health-wise. You know, so I mean, so even that to me is violent. The fact that we don't think about each other and guard each other's health. You know. You know.
Yeah.
All about our personal freedom. Man.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's and I mean, and thinking about this, you know, because there's that reaction. I mean, you know, obviously, I think it's meant to be extreme. You know, whether Luke made it that way or whether that was the reality of what happened. You know, I mean, we don't know for sure, but I mean, I think that. But it does.
Well, the reading said that it wasn't really a cliff. It was. Did you see that in the Christian Century articles? I think she said it was like a little hill or something, but it much more dramatic to say that he was thrown off a cliff. So
yeah.
Well,
but
that kind of. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say one of the things I was reading was saying that, you know, that it was acceptable in Jewish law to, you know, to under the terms of stoning, you know, to have someone fall on a bunch of stones as it was.
Oh my!
I was just like, that's an interesting detail, but I don't know if that's necessarily anything I need to know to get to the bottom of this story.
Yeah.
Oh me, I tell you.
But I do think that what, you know, like that there is something in here, you know, that's close to what. I mean, I think that obviously communities of this day didn't have the heightened sense of personal freedom and you know, individualization that we do.
Yeah.
But that still same sense of an insular kind of community that reacts poorly when they imagine that things that they think should only be theirs get spread out to other other people.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a
And that's January 6th.
How dare you?
That's January 6th. It's the same thing, same mindset.
And then you got to look at it too. They're very comfortable with where they are. It's amazing how people can be comfortable in oppression, in lack of everything, and it's just like the case where Jesus freed the demonic Motel 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, but they had become so used to that.
Mm-hmm.
When Jesus did it, they were afraid. So they told Jesus to leave instead of letting everybody else be healed. And so when you come in differently, it's these small communities like that. And it was a small town.
Mm-hmm.
No, wait a minute. You've been here all your life. Now all of a sudden, you've been here 30 years, and now all of a sudden you're talking this. What is going on?
Right. Yeah.
And not trying to scare folks geopolitically, but we look at what's happening with Ukraine. First of all, there are no military options because this thing can go south just like that to something a whole lot worse. So, and I don't hear folks talking about this situation with Ukraine, and this could be a very, very bad situation because it can go south real quick.
Well, I won't weigh in on this one. Of all the things that we made fun of people for talking about Biden's connection to Ukraine. It's interesting that when he got in office, all of a sudden we're having a Ukrainian problem again. But
interesting.
But anyway,
well,
whatever.
Yeah.
But I might be, anyway. Interesting the way that these things happen. Yeah. But no, I think this is, I'm still struggling with what I'm going to do with this week since I kind of struggled last week. As I was saying before you all got on,
This your text for this Sunday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you should have fun with this one, Darren. I mean,
yeah.
You just free yourself, man. I'm not preaching this week, but so that's.
Oh, there you go.
But
so you can easily say, "Hey, listen to him." He's not.
But I preached it. I preached it a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I followed them back to back. It was when the last time was in the lectionary, and I mean, I had a good time with both of those.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for the thing that I've been thinking about a lot this week, thinking about this is that I think there's a way, and maybe, this might just be autobiographical, but I think there's a way that this has hit me this last time of going through it over the last couple of weeks of really thinking about, what does it take for us to actually, release captives, bring release to people who are oppressed, the deep, structural things we have to deal with in order to do that. And sometimes like hearing that there's kind of like, this is God's ultimatum that this happens, like this is what God is all about. Like, even if within myself, I kind of feel like I wish that there were some easier things to do. You know what I mean? Like, I wish that there was, I wish in a ways, I wish that it was just like, because I think in a church base, I wish it was as simple as just helping my church to do well, and be good, instead of having to think about oh, not only do I have to keep this place alive and try to make a budget, I also have to somehow work on something that no one like really cares about
or no one really
and wants
wants
to
to
do
happen.
anything
No,
about, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's kind
yeah.
of like in my own heart, like I want to kill this message, you know, to some degree. Like I want it to come true, but like having to think about it and like deal with it and talk about it and make people think about it is hard, you know, and no one wants to think about it necessarily.
Well, you're not by
Yeah.
yourself on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, I think I'm not a preacher, but I think if I was teaching this text, I think I would look at this internal pain aspect of it and bring it home to this is brother against brother. Jesus is part of their community. And I think I would look at the violence in our communities, whether it be black on black or whatever. I think I would talk about that. Look at some of those dynamics. Yeah. Because I mean, again, you know, last year 90 homicides here in the city, Philadelphia, all these urban areas. We talk about what's happening with the police and all that stuff, but we need to focus on the dynamics of why there's so much violence within the community, and look at that. We have to start dealing with that. I think
that's what Darren is saying. I think it's because of the oppression. People are bound, and that's what it's trickle down trauma, like you're saying. Yeah, so we can talk about the violence and help folks redirect that, but we have to be at the top level too, dealing with those oppressive systems, and people don't want to deal with that. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to deal. And not unlike the folks that Jesus was dealing with in this text, not everybody. And you know, do you remember Bree Newsom, the woman that climbed that pole and took the so I follow her on Twitter. She's changed her name a couple times, but it's been and I was trying to find it in the last couple of months. She tweeted, she said, if people need to understand, once you accept the fact that not everybody wants equality, not everybody wants all of us to get free.
Right.
When you understand that, it really takes on a whole new dimension.
Yeah.
And so the truth is not unlike the Jewish folks there were like, why are you doing this stuff for other people? This is just for us. There are people in this country that think that prosperity and equality is just for them. Right. And when you realize that they don't want to deal with other people having access to freedom from bondage, freedom from oppression, they don't want it. And I just think it's incredible.
Yeah, and that gets back again, you know, I think I talked about this before about the whole January 6th, that a lot of folks that were part of the mob were business owners, were CEOs who felt just like what you said, Marcy, that this is just for me, you know, and they were upset about that. But yeah, so I agree.
Being able to vote, being able to cast a vote for who you want to make decisions collectively for your group, that's only for certain people, apparently.
Yep.
Only certain people can do that.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's just, to me, it's just, yeah. So,
Well,
sorry. And just despair.
No, and building on that, when you were like, part of the thing that, you know, I was thinking about a lot over the last week after talking about this, you know, this idea of being good news for the poor. You know, one of the things that it says in that Cardinal text, you know, with the peasants talking back and forth, is talks about how we went from bringing good news to the poor to evangelizing the poor. You know, so like it used, you know, the original is you do things that in and of themselves bring good news to the poor. We switched it around to like, you have to evangelize the poor, and then they will change morally enough to become good middle-class people like you.
Oh,
you know, I mean, to me, that's the dynamic that I see. You know, it's like, okay, well, everybody knows why poor people are poor. They have whatever like they have their list of the reasons why. Somehow there's some failing that either they actively did, or even if you're racist enough, like they just got born that way and they're not going to change. And so the trick is to get them some good religion, and then they will be able to fix themselves, because what's wrong with them is a moral failing somewhere.
Yep.
And of course
you want to fix them so they can fit into the system,
right?
But the reality is that everybody knows that there are deeply moral and religious poor people, who are still being oppressed, even though they are lovely, good people. Like, I mean, it's just not the issue. I mean, overall, I mean, that's not the big issue, I don't know. I think that because, I don't remember if Marcy, you were there that time. I don't remember if you were in the class when, we start talking about, racism and stuff like that in white churches. The first that, people talk about how they drive by the black church, and when the parking lot's full, they just love it, because it's like somehow they think like that all the problems that they think are over there, if people start going to church, all of a sudden magically all those issues are going to disappear. Because the issue is that not enough people go to church. I mean, like it doesn't it doesn't make it, they see a moral failing like in blackness that they think the church will solve. I mean, it's and I don't know, it's deeply, deeply troubling, but
and then because people come to faith because of that, then you've got this personal piety thing,
right?
Which means now, look, I don't have to worry about that.
Right.
Get morally right, and then I'm gonna go to heaven. And I'm gonna get everything I need there.
Yeah. I'm saved. So, I'm saved.
Yeah.
Well, and some of it comes into a prosperity kind of gospel as well. Is that if you're morally right, you'll be successful, and if you're not successful, then you're not. Something's wrong morally with you, and you need you need to get that fixed. And if you can't get it fixed, then we don't really have time for you in this place. You need to find another place. Yeah.
Work out your own salvation.
Yeah. No, this is there's a lot there.
There's a lot in this text.
Yeah. Well. We'll see what happens. You know what? I don't know what happened. What happened to me this Sunday too is that we had snow on Saturday, and so on Saturday a.m. into Sunday morning, and it was a really small congregation, and like I don't know. For me, like I have to feed off people, if I because if it's just me and a couple other people, I get inside my own head, and I just get off track,
Well, don't you do virtual?
No.
Yeah, it's part virtual and it's part people there and part people watching along.
You got like I do.
Right.
We had 11 people in the building on Sunday because, like you said, it snowed. Somebody even put the room out that church was canceled. We weren't going to do anything. But I looked into the camera like they're still there. And it's real funny when I do it from home. Well, I use Restream now, so I can't see it. But when I was just doing it with my iPad on Facebook, and people are putting the hearts up and comments and whatnot, it just you got to learn how to let your virtual congregation inspire you in front of you.
Right. I guess it's a failure of imagination on my part.
Oh boy.
Right. Yeah. No. That's good. All right, y'all. This has been fun.
Yeah.
You have to share your sermon with us one day.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll wait until I get one that I feel like sharing.
Oh.
Well, I go out there every weekend. If it's good. Like yesterday, I planned to mainly teach, but the Holy Spirit got hold of it, and it switched up on me.
Yeah.
Oh
I
wow,
did the
yeah.
Nehemiah one. So
That's
I
right.
was,
Yeah.
I was all I was intent on was dealing with understanding, and it just even had me sing at the end.
Oh
Oh,
my.
well,
Yeah.
Old Negro
let me tell you what.
by and by we'll understand each other by and by.
Right. Well, nobody wants me singing at the end. I tell you that. Oh, yeah. No, I was ready. I was ready Sunday afternoon to go back and take it down.
That's right. It's on YouTube.
I might
Yeah.
still go out and I might still go out and take that thing down from
I'm sure it was all right.
take it down. Take it down.
Yeah.
It's not available. Yeah. But I feel bad for the musicians. They put some nice stuff out there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right.
Marcy, how's your studies coming?
Yeah, I'm just overwhelmed with Esther. So I won't be with you all next week because it's too tempting to maybe try to ask a question. So I'm just gonna avoid all conversation next week. It's open book, open notes, open everything except talking to people. So I'm talking to as many people as I can this week and getting everything ready. I mean, I think I'm pretty comfortable with the story and kind of some of the themes. Ironically, Esther is also a book with lots of reversal is a theme in that book as well. And I actually bought a comic book of the text. And you read the first part of it, and I just noticed it this weekend when I picked it up again. You read it, the way you regularly read a book. But halfway through the story, when the reversal happens with Mordecai and Haman, the book, you have to then turn the book upside down and you start reading right to left, which is how you read Hebrew anyway. But it's so interesting the way the author does that, where at the reversal of the story, it turns and so reversal is a big part of Esther too. So I feel like I'm comfortable, but it's just I need to brush up on some Hebrew. But yeah, it's going okay. I think. I think if I could have chosen a book, I would have. This probably would be one of the one. I'm just grateful it's not Isaiah. Grateful it's not Jeremiah.
Okay.
Bigger ones, yeah.
Not the biggies. My other classmate had Titus, and I thought, that sounds great, Titus. But I'm happy with Esther.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Okay.
I'm
So
excited.
you'll know the
prayers,
text. When do you get the text?
3:00 on Saturday. They will email it.
Nice.
And I had a review session with some folks at the seminary last week, and she gave just so much information.
Okay. So this takes place Monday?
No. So they will give me the text of that I have to exegete on Saturday at 3:00.
Okay.
And so there's several parts to it. You have to do something with the Hebrew, some essays, and then the last one, I think they may ask you to do a sermon outline or a Sunday school teaching outline, probably a sermon outline. Okay. So but it's due on Thursday at noon. And you get a long time, but I'm just.
And how many? This is the typical ordination process. This is typical.
Yeah. So 4 exams: theology, exegesis, worship and sacraments, and polity are the 4 exams you have to pass in order to be eligible, sort of ready to receive a call.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. So I've passed theology and now doing exegesis.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
Very exciting.
Yeah. Yes.
But I'll be back with you, and I won't find out, I think, until I'm going to say the 15th think it's like 2 weeks after the Monday, two Mondays after you turn it in. So if it's due on the 3rd, probably the 15th or the 4th. Yeah, 15th. Or wait, 14th, whichever Monday that is when I'll know. They'll send an email, and it's either U or S, either unsatisfactory or satisfactory. So
Okay.
just yeah.
Wow.
But anyway, but pray for me. I appreciate it.
Will.
So I won't see you next week.
I know you.
Unless we can just talk about the text and we don't bring up Esther at all.
You're gonna do well. You're gonna do well.
I hope so. I hope so. I'll be as prepared as I can be, I think.
It sounds like you are. Yep.
We'll try.
Yeah, and so next week,
what is
the lectionary text for next week is the first part of chapter 5. Jesus calls the first disciples.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
So, yeah. So the big catch of fish. You know.
Okay.
Oh, catch a fish.
Yeah.
It's 1 through 11.
Yeah, 1 through 11. Yep.
Okay.
5, 1 through 11. Yeah. Yep. Then we'll look at that.
All right.
All right. Fun time, y'all.
Fun time.
Good talking to you.
Talk to y'all.
Good thing they don't, penalize me for talking to people about the text before I have to preach it. So I'm glad.
I'll still send the Christians. The magazine comes every 2 weeks, so it'll be in next week. So I'll still send y'all the Christian Century reading for it.
Sounds good.
Cool.
All right.
All right.
All right, y'all.
Good talking to y'all.